This week, PAPI Coalition formally dissolves as standings are reset. The Imperium continue their cleanup of their recovered regions. A fight breaks out over Blood Raider capital blueprints. PIBC demonstrate a new level of power as a result of joining Rekkin Crew. We have another supercap escalation in Lonetrek, and I bring you an update on the Alliance tournament setup. Hello pod people, I am Frost, and this is your weekly EVE Online update. Welcome back. So as always, we start off the show by announcing the prize draw winners for the Scope Syndication skins. At the moment, this month, it is the Abaddon skin. I have 3 winners to announce, so as always, I'm going to squeeze over a little bit. First up, we have from the 10th of August episode, we have Naki. And then from the 17th of August episode, which is last week's episode, we have Omega Nardieu and Ulysses Delacour, who are all winners of the Abaddon Scope Syndication skin. And as usual, I will be doing my 2 more skin giveaways. Sorry, I mixed up my words there. A little bit later on in the show. And as always, it's the Abaddon for this month. Okay, so let's jump into all of the news now. So as always, up into my box. We have Dotland in front of us. I am going to grab my trusty pen, which I'm hoping is going to work okay. If I can find my mouse, here we go. All right, so the first thing I want to do is I just want to kind of cover the main kind of coalitions that exist within New Eden, and then kind of discuss some of the standings and how they've changed. So what we'll do is first of all, we'll use the blue pen, I think, to cover the kind of the blue donut, which was the group that we knew as PAPI. So we have Fraternity or Winter Coalition, up in the north here, who are in these regions here. There we go. Then we have PanFam, which is made up of Pandemic Legion, Pandemic Horde, NC Dot, etc., who are over in the Drone Lands, which is this area here. And we're going to leave out Outer Passage, as Outer Passage has kind of been donated to Test to allow them to recover. We'll come on to that in a minute. Then we had Fire Coalition, who are down in the southeast, and they're in Scalding Pass. They've got a little bit of Tenerifis as well, Wicked Creek, Deterate, and Innsmother. And then, so those are kind of the PAPI groups, and obviously then we had Legacy Coalition, who were in the south, but as we know, Legacy Coalition is no more. Now we're going to cover the other groups. So obviously we had the Imperium. The Imperium are in Fountain, Delve, Quirius, Period Basis. There we go. Then we have Rekkin Crew. So Rekkin Crew obviously have expanded by joining up with PIBC, or PIBC coming into Rekkin Crew. So now they're in Providence, Catch, Esoteria, Paragon Sol, Fetherbolis, Omist, Tenerifis as well, and then Catch and Providence. We then have kind of Volta and Friends. I don't know if they actually have a proper coalition name. If so, I need to be corrected on that, and I'll put a correction in the comments as I do. And they're up here in Declan Fade, Pureblind, and Cloud Ring. We then have a couple of other little groups. So obviously we've got Impasse, where we have Red Menace Coalition, who are down in the bottom here. I'm just using the blue pen for clarity. They were not involved with PAPI in any way. And then obviously now we, as I mentioned before, I'm going to use the pink pen for this just to highlight again. We've got Outer Passage, where we've got Test kind of settling in. And then we have Brave. And Brave are attempting to settle into Geminate. Right, so where does this all affect us in terms of standings? Well, what's happened is pretty much as of today, the 3 main groups that you see highlighted in blue. So Winter Coalition in the north, PanFam in the northeast, and Fire Coalition in the southeast have reset. Now, what I mean by reset is they've set each other to neutral. So they have the right to fire upon each other, but they do not have the right to invade each other's territory. So it's kind of, I don't know if it's formal, but we have non-invasion pacts in place that there is to be no sov warfare between these groups. So that's why when I said, you know, in the title that Blue Donut resets, but is it enough? What we're seeing here is that we're not going to see any big changes in the landscape in the near future, but it does allow all of these groups at least to roam into each other's territories and get roaming fights and whaling and all that kind of stuff, dropping on rorks, dropping on capitals when they're ratting again, hopefully at the end of the year when we get the anoms and when the scarcity kind of dies down a little bit, hopefully we'll see capitals come back out in anomalies and stuff. Then the 2 areas in pink in the east there, which I show you, are Geminate and Outer Passage. So the situation with that is that all of the PAPI coalitions appear to have agreed upon the fact that they will leave both Brave and Test Alliance, please ignore as blue, and give them time to be able to regroup and get themselves back into shape so that they can then hopefully move off the couch and find a new home for themselves and see where they go from there. So that's kind of the situation there. Then the last little group I wanted to mention was Rekkin Crew in the south. So Rekkin Crew are the one in pink down there in the south. And the thing with Rekkin Crew is it's a bit of an interesting situation. Now, during the whole kind of World War II thing, or Vietnam, whatever you want to call it, the war that has taken place in the invasion of the Imperium regions, is that Rekkin Crew were pretty much independent. They kind of did their own thing. They kind of attacked everybody. They had a big thing for Legacy Coalition. They attacked them a lot, and then focused on kind of growing their territory. Now, because of their historical links with Pandemic Legion, let me just grab and just do an arrow. So we kind of got a bit of a blue standings kind of going on between these two coalitions, but it is kind of informal. So I think that really depends on what the activities are of Rekkin Crew and what they decide to do as to whether PanFam decide to go aggressive towards them or not. And so that's something that we'll be able to look out for in the future. Be interesting to see as well what Volta and friends do up in the northwest there. And obviously they've been kind of aggressing into Winter Coalition territory and vice versa over the last few months, even during the war. And we'll have to see how that plays out. Now, the end result of this is that as of today, so today being Monday the 23rd of August, Pandemic Horde wasted no time in jumping into the Veil of the Silent with a bunch of cormorants. I got the screen grab here that was posted in my Discord, so thank you very much for doing that. The thing that I wanted to point it out here is this is kind of typical Pandemic Horde. They're bringing a whole bunch of cormorants on a roam, and in typical fraternity style, we have two titans that are dropped on a bunch of corms. So we had a Ragnarok and an Avatar. I'm not quite sure how that was going to play out. My first question was, why would you drop a couple of titans on some cormorants? Because you can't really shoot them. But it was potentially suggested they may have had smart bombs fitted, which would definitely kill the cormorants, or maybe even attempt to lance. So I don't know how that played out. So if anybody wants to let me know, I'll be interested to find out. Okay, so then we're going to go back to our map quickly, and we're going to just mention the Outer Passage. So Outer Passage, as I said, up here in the east, in the northeast, is where tests are kind of settling in. So it does appear that the Imperium have got special interest groups up there already and have started harassing. There was a pan-intergalactic jump gate that was destroyed in one of the systems there. And then there was a Fortizar that was anchoring, a test Fortizar that was anchoring, that was killed by Goon Swarm at the anchoring stage. And I don't know whether that was planned or whether it was kind of something jumped the gun. As we know, within Test Alliance, Corps have a habit of jumping the gun sometimes and doing things a little bit ahead of schedule, i.e. unanchoring structures. So miscommunication can still happen in test, and that may be what it was there. Okay, so moving on to Geminate. So let's just open up Geminate quickly. So with Geminate, we now see that Brave have actually put down an iHub in NBPH-N. And as you can see, it was immediately reinforced. Brave never have anything easy. But the other thing to note as well was the Dark Side were in this constellation here, and Pandemic Horde have pushed them out. So Dark Side have now only got two systems in QKTR-L and 4KON-J. And Fraternity have actually come in and taken some SOV as well down here in the south, which was kind of unexpected. So I don't know whether that's as a consequence of both Winter Coalition and PanFam just trying to help Brave a little bit and just try and push some of the people that may cause issues for Brave. I don't know for certain, but that's what it appears to be like. And we'll have to keep an eye out on Geminate and see how that plays out. Right, so then what we're going to do is we're going to go on to quickly the regions that are owned by the Imperium. So we're going to talk about Delve quickly. So Delve, as you know, there's been a massive cleanup. Last week, it was a ridiculous amount of Fortizars were destroyed, like 47 Fortizars, a few Keepstars as well. That's still continuing. The count that I counted since the last episode was 13 Fortizars destroyed, Most of those belong to Test, about 2 or 3 belong to Pandemic Horde, and there was an Asbel as well. Then in Quirius, we had 5 Fortizars destroyed that all belong to Legacy Coalition, and an Asbel as well. I also need to make a correction. I posted it in my comments, but I need to do it in the episode as well. That last week I talked about Sentinel Dawn that were living in this constellation here. And I said that they came from Requiem Eternal. That isn't the case. They came from Reseda Regnum, which was another alliance within Legacy Coalition that kind of imploded. I just need to make that correction. I got all my R's mixed up there. As we can see from the map as well, Dracarys and Siberian Squad are kind of settling in, so the kind of the Russian time zone alliances are kind of moving into Quirius and making it their own, with Goon Swarm obviously taking Fake Delve over in the left here, and then also some of the northern constellations as well. And then I assume these last few will be taken in the next week or so. Then we can move on to Fountain. So in Fountain, the initiative have taken back most of the systems now. We do have Gangbang Team up in the north, which I was questioning earlier last week. It doesn't appear that the initiative are going to let them stay. From what I understand, I think the plan is to move them out as well, and we could expect their soft to be reinforced in the next week, and I will keep an eye on that. Other bit of news though, which is actually quite interesting. So if I go to the TCU map, French Connection have made a comeback. So there we go. So French Connection are right here. It looks like they are being reformed. So if you remember back in the days of Catch, they took some Sovereign Catch and then they dropped it and actually joined the initiative, handed over control of the iHubs, etc. to Dracarys. And it looks like now, if we actually look at the French Connection .land map, we can see that right down the bottom here, we can see first of all Dracari control and exotic connections withdrawing from the alliance. Those were the 2 groups from Dracarys that were taking control of iHubs and stuff. And then we have Tutati Raiders who have now returned to French Connection, and they are the biggest group, or were the biggest group within French Connection. So it'll be interesting to see if we have some of the other groups now come back and see French Connection back at full force again. So we'll have to keep an eye on that. Then the other piece of news that I had for Fountain was a Fortizar was AWOXed by the initiative. And so I actually forgot about the abandonment mechanic again. And so I chased up and I was given some info on this, so that was great. So essentially what we have here is that this Fortizar had a bit of history. So it was originally an Imperium backup Fortizar. Then some traitors then handed it over to Pandemic Horde. Then Federation Uprising moved into Fountain, as you remember, and helped create PAPI. And so then Pandemic Horde gave it to, or handed it over, or sold it, whichever, over to Federation Uprising. And then when Federation Uprising left, the initiative then bought it from Federation Uprising rather than killing it. Now, the reason for doing that is that it was an understanding that from the initiative that this was actually used as a staging system for one of the PAPI alliances, or FAPI, whichever, or both. And as a consequence, what they decided to do was basically buy it. They then let it run out of fuel, so it went into abandoned state. And if you remember from the mechanics of abandoned state, when you destroy a Fortizar, anything that's within it drops out. So they thought there would be quids in and get some good drops out of it. And as my understanding is that the drop was 210 billion, 92 billion in ships alone. So a good pinata drop there for the initiative, and that is the reason why the initiative killed one of their own structures. All right, so moving on, we are going to go over to period basis. So with period basis, I need to cover, right, so all the iHubs were flipped. If you remember last week, we still had some warped intentions. iHubs left there, they've now all been flipped. There were some test ones down in the bottom corner here. They've all been flipped as well. And then we now know that warped intentions have indeed completely disbanded. So if we actually look here, you can see the member count has dropped to basically 0. And from what we can see as well, if we actually look at the corporations, they're kind of split up and gone all over the place. So it's a long list. There we go. So it does appear like a whole, the line is actually kind of here. This is in the last week that we see. So everything below that is all the corporations that have left Warped Intentions. You can see that Fraternity and Lords of Word Alliance are Winter Coalition. So a number of corporations went to Winter Coalition. There is one group there, a Pike Syndicate, who went to Slice at Soliaris Snonium, which is PanFam. And then we have 4 corporations there as well that you can see. So we've got Bullet Box, Galactic Deep Space Industries, Avior Resources, and Darkside Inc. have gone over to Brave Collective. And then we have a few other groups that have very much gone their own route. I believe one of the groups, Australian Belt Strippers, have gone to Militaires Sans Frontières, which is a high-sec group. So we will see how that all pans out for those guys. Right, so that's up to date now on period basis, right? So then if you remember the map I was showing earlier on the universe map, and if you remember I talked about Tenerifis and how Fire Coalition were there, and then also Rekkin Crew were also in Tenerifis. So if you drill down into that, you can see here. So Fire Coalition being XIX, and then, so XIX are here, there we go. And then Army of Mango are PIBC, aka Rekkin Crew, and they are up here. So we have some crossover, and we can now see that QLU-PO has been reinforced. I believe that is part of the jump gate network for AOM, which will make it a good idea for a first target. And what it does show is that what we're seeing here is potentially the beginning of soft warfare between Fire Coalition and PIBC, part of Rekkin Crew. And we'll have to see if it expands on that, and that'll be something to keep an eye on. All right, so then I'm going to go on to fights. There have been some fights this week. It's not just all been this kind of sob and standing stuff. Before we do that, though, we have to do the giveaway. So the giveaway, as I mentioned earlier, is the Abaddon Scope Syndication skin, which you see right here. Battleship skins, good stuff. You can decide whether you want an arty Abaddon or a lasers Abaddon, whether you want to use it as a bait ship. It's up to you, but you'll be able to do it with a cool skin. As always, we have a keyword that you have to use in the comments. I think the word I'm going to use this week is actually alliance. So you have to think of a sentence with the word alliance in it, and then you will be included in the prize draw. The cutoff date for the prize draw is, let me just check in my dates here, Friday the 27th of August at 1800 UTC. So make sure you do your comment before then with the keyword alliance. Obviously, a lot of alliances have changed their standings, and also I'll be talking about the alliance tournament a little bit later on in the show. Right, so let's get back to business. Right, so first up, 3 fights I want to talk about. 2 I have lots of details on, 1 I don't. The first one is the one I don't have details on. What this was actually in Providence. And even though this shows a huge loss here of 162 billion, I need to make it very clear that the vast majority of that 140 billion is over at the engineering complex. So what is this about? So this was a fight over a CTO that belonged to the Blood Ravens. So this is kind of the high-end PvE stuff. And these CTOs are highly prized because they drop the blueprints for the Blood Raiders capitals. So that's the Moloch for the Titan, the Chemosh for the Dreadnought, and the Dagon or Dagon for the fax, or it pretends to be a fax, but as we know from last week's episode, the Dagon is basically a beefy Balgorn that basically has loads of newt bonuses. And so I'm not quite sure which way round this played out. So this was the territory of Domain Research and Mining Institute. They actually owned the SOV where this Blood Raiders CTO was. So I don't know if it was those guys that were going after the CTO and then Fraternity dropped in and tried to steal the blueprints, or whether it was the other way around. Also, I don't know who actually got the blueprints, and what the blueprints were. So unfortunately, I'm still waiting on Fraternity to get back to me. The people I knew in Fraternity, they're in a different time zone, so they weren't able to tell me. And also, I don't have contacts yet at Domain Research and Mining Institute. So if either of you guys have this information and want to get in touch with me, please get in touch into my Discord, DM me and let me know, and then I can bring everyone up to date next week, as I'm sure we all want to know where those blueprints were and what they were as well. Okay, then we're going to go to Esoteria. So in Esoteria, bring on the right map. So this fight took place in HHQ-M1, and it was over a Athanor. And the Athanor belonged to Friends of Fraternity. So let me find the battle report. Here it is. And we had some big losses in this one. Primarily, a lot of super carriers died. And it was a trap, and it involved PIBC and Rekkin Crew. We then obviously had Winter Coalition, and we even had Goon Swarm, and I am going to include Nvidia Glory Comes in there as well, as they're now part of the Imperium, who appeared to be wandering through and kind of third-partied in on the fight. So what happened? Well, this Athanor needed protecting, and Fraternity and Winter Coalition as a whole decided to come and help. So they managed to find themselves a wormhole to get out of their northern regions, got themselves all the way down to Stain. It looks like they still have a Titan down there in Stain that allowed them to then basically jump bridge towards Esoteria. So they arrived, and let me find all my notes, make sure I've got everything here. So yeah, they arrived and they brought a whole bunch of Munins. And so the Munins are down the bottom here somewhere. There we go, they're all the Munins. Then Ferrata, Ferrex and friends formed Gila fleets to help Winter Coalition, that's right. Then PIBC, so that's Army of Mango and Invictus, and Vindictive, and I will come back to Vindictive in a minute because I've got a correction to make about Vindictive. Vindictive, all three of those guys, what did they bring? They brought Munins, and then the brawl started. So at that point, once that happened, and the brawl was starting to happening, sorry, I lost my words there a minute. Evictus, who are part of PIBC and therefore Rekkin Crew, dropped a bunch of capitals, and they were basically bait capitals. And Ferrata and Fastkick took the bait, and Ferrata and Fastkick were helping Winter Coalition, and they dropped a whole bunch of supers. And this is where the PIBC and Rekkin Crew merger, or PIBC joining Rekkin Crew takes place, because at this point, Dreadbomb and PIBC as a whole dropped Dreads, and Dreadbomb also brought a Nightmare fleet, and they managed to trap these supers and kill a whole bunch of these supers. This left the Winter Coalition fleet in a difficult position. They could have extracted, but I believe, as my understanding is, they stayed behind and sacrificed their fleet in order to try and clear the tackle off of these supers in order to try and help these supers get out. So that was a big dunk there on the Winter Coalition stroke Ferrata Victrix fast kick side. But it shows also that PIBC now have working very much in conjunction with the rest of Rekkin Crew and Dreadbomb in particular. So there you go. And then, oh, by the way, and also Rekkin Crew and PIBC also reinforced the Athanor. I assume it died. I don't know. I didn't check. That wasn't kind of the big story there. But the fight was. And so, yeah, that was a big kill board on that one. Right, then the other fight that happened, it was all the way over in Lonetrek, all the way up in Losec in Caldari space. So the fight actually took place in Orohunan. Oh, actually, before I do that, let me do my correction. So I mentioned last week that Vindictive were folding into AOM and Evictus. That was what I was made to understand by groups within PIBC, but not Vindictive themselves. Vindictive were very nice. They got in touch with me and got me up to speed, and it was, no, Vindictive are very much their own alliance. They plan to stay their own alliance and are happy to be part of PIBC and will be one of the trio that makes up PIBC and, of course, Rekkin Crew. So there you go. So once again, I need to make sure that I always announce my corrections. All right, let's go back to Lonetrek. So Lonetrek, as I mentioned, Orohunan. So what we have here is we have two groups that have been fighting before, and I talked about. So let me bring up the kill board. So what we have is we had a fight that basically involved You Are Dunked, who succeeded in baiting Hidden Leaf Village Ninja Assassin Squad Esports, aka No Handlebars, and Really Strong Alliance. Now, if you remember a few weeks back, they kind of had this whole baiting and counter drop stuff happen in low sec. I think it was about a month ago now, maybe even a bit more. And so I was able to speak to both sides and kind of get a pretty good picture of what went on here. So essentially, Hidden Leaf Village Ninja Assassin Squad Esports, aka No Handlebars, have been successfully dropping on, doing blocks drops on You Are Dunked over the last week or two. And so as a consequence of that, You Are Dunked were aware of this and were expecting another bait. Now, the bait this time came in the form of two Nestors who were gating through that gate up in towards high sec. I can't remember if they were coming into high sec or going out, but either way, there were two Nestors. Now, I was really surprised by this. It was like, well, why would you have two Nestors flying around on their own? I was brought up to speed on this. Apparently, Nestors are common in wormhole regions as PvE ships. And so therefore, it kind of made sense that these two Nestors were kind of just gating through, looking for a wormhole to get home. And so the bait was taken. The bait was taken because it may not have been bait, but also the fact that You Are Dunked were actually prepared this time. So this is what happened. So the Nestors showed up, You Are Dunked and NC Dots, Northern Coalition, then brought some blops. So I think it was a bunch of Panthers, if I remember correctly. Yeah, so a bunch of Panthers and a Marshal. Maybe one or two Marshals, no, and a couple of Sins, so your proper box battleships. And then basically Hidden Leaf and Really Strong Alliance responded with the same, so they brought their own blocks battleships. At this point, NC Dot dropped a fax to force an escalation, so the fax basically protecting the blocks battleships. So Hidden Leaf and Really Strong Alliance then responded by dropping two supers. At this point, then the counter drop happened, and we had Nosek Naya Shalupan show up. We had Volta show up with a super. So let me just clear that. There we go. So we had a Volta super up there in the top. And then right down the bottom, we had the Battle Rorks. So what was interesting here was that we had You Are Dunked, we had Northern Coalition, and we even had Snuffed Out show up for this. So what I want to point out with this is that first of all, we see the kind of the friendship side of things creating these kind of short-term alliances. So as we know, a whole bunch of a couple of corps went from Original Sinners and Evolution, I can't remember the second corp, left Northern Coalition to join Nosek Naya Shalupan. So those kind of friendships are still there across those groups. So bat phones were made, and so this group was made up of Northern Coalition, and Nosek Naya Shalupan. Then we obviously have the relationship between You Are Dunked and we formed Volta, which brought the Knicks in, and clearly somebody knew somebody in Low Life in Snuffed Out as well, and so Snuffed Out dropped in. And so the end result with this fight, though, also to be aware of, is this was very much a blob fight. So the numbers up here that we're looking at, you can see right at the top. So we got Team B 25 involved. That was actually 8 pilots, because if you remember, let me use the full name again. Hidden Leaf Village Ninja Assassin Squad Esports do like to use a lot of multi-boxing. And so they were basically blobbed by NC Dot, Nosek Naya Shalupan, You Are Dunked, Snuffed Out, etc., etc. So, and Volta. And so that was the end result. So, we ended up with quite a big loss there on the side of Hidden Leaf and Really Strong Alliance. But they were not in a position where they could do very much. Now, one of the things that came out of this conversation, which I thought was really interesting, I wanted to bring it up, was I was curious as to why supers were dropped. And Hidden Leaf Village and Assassin Squad Esports spoke to me and said that supers were now easier for them to drop than dreads. The biggest problem they have right now is that nobody is making dreads in low sec anymore, and these do appear to be starting to become in short supply. So I don't know whether that's going to affect Snuffed Out. We know Snuffed Out love to drop a dread against Fraternity. Fraternity like to drop dreads too. It's now going to be a question of whether those caches from Snuffed Out are going to be able to be maintained until the fall, when hopefully we'll see the end of scarcity, and we will see maybe the price of dreads drop and see them being built a little bit more. The price of dreads being the price of production rather than the price of buying them, which obviously is related to that. So interesting there. So basically from the point of view of Hidden Leaf was that they would rather drop 2 supers. It's easier for them to replace 2 supers than it is to replace 10 dreads. So once again, we'll have to see how that plays out, and we'll have to see if we're going to continue seeing kind of these big dread fights that have been happening between Winter Coalition and Snuffed Out. Right, so I think that brings me up to date on that. So the last thing I want to close off with this as well, I want to say thank you very much to all of the groups that always are responding to my inquiries about these fights, whether they're on the winning side or the losing side. By having both sides of the story, it really helps me to kind of create a balanced picture. And so I just want to say publicly thank you very much to all the groups that engage me in conversation and kind of give me their account of events as they happened, like I said, whether they're on the winning side or the losing side. So good fights and thank yous all around to all of these groups. Okay, so now let's move on to other stuff. So if I go to, I closed my tab. Did I close my tab? No, I moved it over onto another screen. Let me bring that up over here again. There we go. No, and pop it into my tabs. See if I can get it to, no, I'm gonna have to just jump windows. Okay, so Universe, Bleak Lands and Sync Liaison. So if you remember these two regions, Dock Workers and Lonetrek and I, Shlupen have kind of been duking it out over the last 2 weeks. I've actually commented on a few battles. From what I understand, nothing has actually happened in the last week between these two groups. The only thing that I do know is that Lonetrek and I, Shlupen do still appear to be deployed there. So maybe other events, and the Alliance tournament is affecting a lot of groups at the moment. They are kind of getting very focused on setting up for the feeders, which I'll talk about in a minute. But so therefore no news there, but that doesn't mean there's not going to be more news in the future between Lonetrek and I, Shlupen and Dock Workers. Then in Kador, which is low sec up here, we did have a Titan death this week. The Titan death, let me move this out of the way again. Let me put it over here, there we go. There was a Titan death of a Leviathan, which belonged to Warped Intentions. And it looked like a solo move, as we can see from the fit of the notional stabs on the bottom there, and also the afterburner, that it looks like a solo move up that went wrong and he got caught. As I understand from Warped Intentions, it was a bit difficult to get information. As I say, the kind of groups disbanded. It does seem that there was some kind of miscommunication in terms of the move ups, and some people were waiting on their corp leaders to announce the move up rather than their alliance. A few people got left behind or fell behind, and as a consequence ended up in some solo move-ups like we saw here, which is why this Titan got destroyed. Okay, so now we're going to talk very briefly about the Alliance tournament. I just want to bring you up to speed on this, a few things that need mentioning. So this announcement was made on the 20th. I can't even remember what day that was. I can't see my diary. I've covered it up with my Dotlan, but it was a few days ago. And the main thing that I need to say about this is that, first of all, 75 alliances have applied to compete in the tournament. I don't think that's the biggest number ever. I think it's maybe the second or third best, but still big numbers. So it shows that the Alliance tournament has been well received and that people do want to partake in it. Now, as a consequence of that, we had the possibility that the feeder tournament was actually going to be bigger than the actual Alliance tournament itself. So as a result, what's actually happening is two things. First of all, the feeder initially was only going to put 8 teams through to the Alliance tournament. So there were going to be 32 teams in the Alliance tournament, of which 8 were going to be from the feeders. This has now changed, and 16 teams are now going to be going through to the Alliance tournament, meaning that the Alliance tournament is now going to have 40 teams competing in it. So now coming on to those teams. So first up, I need to say as well, the teams that made it through, they're obviously the teams, the first bracket, which is the group that, because of their standings and their results in Alliance Open and Anger Games, were automatically brought into the Alliance tournament. And then there was the silent auctions. So with the silent auctions, these groups managed to get in with the silent auctions. Now, there was a situation where there were 3 alliances that were actually in the kind of the bottom tier of the silent auction, and there was a tiebreaker. And there was this post here from CCP Aurora, and basically CCP Aurora got back at Hidden Leaf Village Ninja Assassin Squad Esports for making their alliance name too long, because the way she did the tiebreaker was to get all the alliances to type in their alliance name as quickly as possible. And unfortunately, Hidden Leaf Village Ninja Assassin Squad Esports took too long typing out their alliance name and failed to make the cut, as worded by CCP Aurora. So they got into the feeders. So there is a feeder table here. I will link this in the description below. This will be updated live. Now, the main thing I want to point out with this is that basically two things. So all the alliances that make it into this bracket will make it through to the alliance tournament. So everything that's in blue is basically irrelevant. So we don't actually care about any of that. Now, because of the number of alliances involved, a number of alliances actually got picked by the seeding process, which was a bingo thing that was done live by CCP Aurora and CCP Antiquarian. A number of alliances only need to actually do one match. So that's Celestial Empire, Laserhawks, Red versus Blue, Velour Accord, etc., etc. All of these in round 2. They only need to successfully win against one other team, and then they will make it into the feeder bracket, and then they wouldn't automatically go through. All of the other alliances will have to compete and win against 2 other teams in order to make it into the alliance tournament. Interesting little matchup down the bottom here. If I just clear my pen quickly, if you've got Northern Coalition and Lonetrek and I are going to be fighting each other, and obviously with the fact that a number of corps from Northern Coalition went into Lonetrek and I you're going to end up with friends fighting friends there, I think. So so once again, the feeders are happening on the weekend of the 4th and the 5th, and that pretty much brings me up to speed on the Alliance tournament. The last thing I want to mention is just a really good little bit of a video here. This is called Won't Stop Goons Now, an Eve parody. So highly recommend you watch this just for the lyrics and because it's a really well done parody. I haven't got the audio on because I'll get demonetized, but basically it's Don't Stop Me Now by Queen. I've got an ad come up, that's just typical. I'll just turn that off and just tell you that basically, so Don't Stop Me Now by Queen is the soundtrack. The words have been rewritten by Goon Swarm, and then they have sung over the top with their new lyrics, and it is really well done, so that's worth a watch. All right, so that's about it from me. I think that's everything. So as always, don't forget to like, subscribe, hit the bell icon for notifications. Please mention me in your Discord, whether it's a Corp Discord or Alliance Discord, help the channel grow. If you're a premium member, thank you very much. That always helps my subs as well. That helps my watch time as well, and helps build up revenue for me. And try and watch the video to the end, even if you get bored with it. Obviously, you made it to the end on this one, but in the future, watch it. The watch time really helps me. And I'm waffling. Good luck in the comments with the prize draw. That's all from me. Bye for now.